we've always been truthful with each other. And he is not guilty of these horrific crimes that he's been charged with. I'm not saying that the accusers lied, but I'm saying that I don't believe their stories.
Help me understand the difference.
There is evidence that cannot be let out at this time, that their stories are not true. I know who I am, and I know who Jerry is, and I know he did not do the horrible crimes that he's convicted of.
He is the conservative filmmaker behind Media Malpractice, How Obama Got Elected, and Blocking the Path to 9/11. Now, our next guest is speaking out on his latest project, the framing of Joe Paterno, or as his detractors suggest, conspiracy theories conjured up to defend child rapist Jerry Sandusky. Good to have you here with us, John. Thanks for joining us.
Well, first of all, that's a preposterous introduction because I'm the anti-conspiracy person here. I do not believe in conspiracies. The framing of Joe Paterno is figurative. It's not literal. And the only conspiracy person here was Louis Freeh, who did the Freeh report, claiming that there was a cover-up at Penn State for which there's absolutely no evidence. So I want to make it clear. I'm not a conspiracy person. I don't believe in conspiracies because I don't think human beings are nearly smart enough to be able to pull that kind of thing off.
You definitely have detractors, though, that will look at what you do, and they'll say, what on earth is this guy talking about? Jerry Sandusky is a controversial figure, to say the least. You know, he's convicted of 45 counts of child sexual abuse. But you have a different stance of how this story should be told.
I absolutely do, and it's important for context for people to know that I'm not involved in a commercial endeavor. The film I did was for free. The book I put out on our website is for free. And I started on this 2 years ago because I was positive that there was no cover-up and that Penn State's legendary football coach, Joe Paterno, who was fired 4 days into this story, even though Jerry Sandusky hadn't worked for him in over a decade, had been railroaded. And I believe I've proven that. And although the mainstream news media in the United States hasn't yet accepted it, the reality is that that's already been shown to be the reality. Joe Paterno was railroaded. And then as I got deeper and deeper into this story, and I interviewed Jerry Sandusky not once but twice from prison, I interviewed his wife extensively, gotten to know numerous people involved in this story that the mainstream news media ignored after they rushed to their judgment back in November of 2011, I started to realize, wait a minute, the math on this story doesn't add up, and there's a reason why the media bought in to a story where the math didn't add up. It was because of that firing of Joe Paterno 4 days into the story, which created a nuclear explosion, and after that, the truth got completely lost because now we have a snowball going down the mountain. It creates an avalanche. Everyone's afraid to get in front of it, and the whole world changes. The trial was a sham. And I do not believe that Jerry Sandusky was guilty of the most heinous crimes for which he was convicted. I do not believe he ever had sex with boys. And the evidence that he ever did have sex with boys is hellaciously thin and nonsensical in the overall narrative of this case.
Okay, so there are really two stories that you're telling here. Is that you don't believe that Jerry Sandusky, is it that he didn't do anything at all? Or is it that what he was convicted of is the wrong conviction? And also, you're also trying to, I guess, give Mr. Paterno some kind of chance to have his story told, even though he's no longer with us.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those things. To be clear, I am quite positive that Jerry Sandusky never had sex acts with a boy. He has no consciousness of guilt. Dottie Sandusky has no consciousness of guilt. She was placed at the scene of these alleged crimes by several of the key victims, and the narrative of that scenario makes absolutely no sense. Now, his interaction with boys, he has acknowledged to me in my first attempt to get him to confess that, quote, he may have tested boundaries, and I think that's probably true, but that is not the same thing as what he was convicted of, why Penn State got all the sanctions that they got from the NCAA, not why Joe Paterno got fired, not why 3 Penn State administrators are currently still facing trial for a cover-up that did not happen. So I think that's an incredibly important context, and there's absolutely no question, and my primary goal here has been to tell the truth about what Joe Paterno did and did not know about this, and I am positive that there was no cover-up of this, mostly because there was so very little to actually cover up, if anything, and Joe Paterno was railroaded here, without a doubt.
There were those that took the stand and spoke about what happened to them. Do you believe that the victims not only were manipulated, but do you get the sense that they're going to change the narrative at some point?
Well, there's one victim in particular, or alleged victim, that is incredibly key to this case. There was a former assistant Penn State football coach named Mike McQueary, who is alleged to have seen Jerry Sandusky involved in some sort of an assault in a Penn State shower back in 2001. He is the only non-victim witness in the entire case, which is pretty extraordinary if you think Jerry Sandusky was the monster that the media made him out to be and the prosecution made him out to be. The victim in that case has said on the record on numerous occasions, including the day Joe Paterno was fired, that nothing ever happened between him and Jerry Sandusky that was remotely sexual, and that Mike McQueary is not telling the truth. He has never contradicted that statement, which he made proactively as a 24-year-old married sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps. And although he has accepted money from Penn State, I believe it's because of a complex series of reasons that do not in any way, shape, or form contradict that original story. That assault did not happen, and that was the bedrock on which all the rest of this case was built. And I believe other victims were told, we have a victim number one, who I think is not credible, and we have Mike McQueary claiming that he saw Jerry assaulting a boy. It was those two pillars, which we were told were steel in November of 2011, which were actually made of sand, that I believe were used to manipulate other victims into saying things that they probably don't think were wrong, because their perceptions of Jerry changed when they were told that by investigators.
Quickly before we let you go, you've spent a lot of time with Jerry Sandusky's wife, Dottie. Everyone assumes that just because Mr. Sandusky might be in trouble, that she is just as guilty. What's her life like now?
If anybody spent 15 minutes, and this is why I set up the interview with the Today Show here in America, to make sure that people can understand this. If anyone spends 15 minutes with Dottie Sandusky, they know that she's not delusional. She's not stupid. She knows the case far better than the average news media member. She actually has tried to understand the case against her husband and still to this day is very open to it, but she knows it's not true. Her life is exceedingly difficult. She has no money. They have taken away Jerry Sandusky's pension, which is unprecedented under these circumstances. She drives once a week, 3.5 hours each way, come hell or high water, to visit him in prison. She and her entire family, other than the one adopted son who flipped in the middle of the trial clearly for money, completely and totally believe in Jerry Sandusky's innocence, and they are not delusional. And many other people close to this case, who are not nearly as stupid as I am to actually speak the truth of this, also believe in some level of Jerry's innocence. It's just that this case is so toxic, no one wants to say it publicly because there's too much to lose. I'm just one of these people that actually believes in the truth, and we'll see whether the truth still matters in this case.
Let's see if there's another chapter to come. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for your time.